Okay, the reading habit back here. Now, I was just doing a challenge for May, which is 50 books, and reading 50 books for May. That was my May book reading challenge. And today is May 30th, and yesterday I actually achieved the 50 books. Um, whose idea was it to do read 50 books in a month? I mean, what idiot would try to read 50 books in a month? And well, that person is me. I created this burden for myself, and I guess I will just have some closing final thoughts about it. My eyes are downward and not looking at you because I'm looking at my Goodreads where I track all of my books. I stopped tracking books on Word documents a few years ago, 5, 6 years. That's a few years ago to me, 5, 6 years ago. But and switched over completely to Goodreads, outsourcing my book tracking. And anyway, I'm looking through. I guess I don't have any plan for this video. I guess I just want to have some closing thoughts on what it was like to read 50 books for 1 month. Uh, First off, would I recommend doing that? I do not recommend reading 50 books in a month because as the month drew on, and probably around book 40, it really started to feel like a burden, and I started to read more. I started to fill up most of my free time with reading just to kind of get it done because I had it stuck in my head like, well, I got to do this challenge. And because I have a YouTube video, I felt even more inclined to successfully finish the challenge. But it began to feel burdensome. And I don't recommend giving yourself challenges that might push you beyond an unnecessary level of discomfort just trying to get it done. Also, if that causes any kind of cheating. Now, I didn't think that I cheated. I did actually read cover to cover each of the 50 books, but some of the books I didn't process nearly as well as others. And I'm okay with that. Let me just go through from beginning to end. I'm just going to read off to you the titles of the books that I read and whether or not I think that they are worth reading or what I thought about them. I'll try to be quick here. I don't want to spend any too long on any one book or author. Okay, so I just grabbed a bunch of these what I call boomer books. They're essentially these 300 to 400 page novels that are fairly quick to and easy to read. You'll find them all over the place in any library. And so I started with Patricia Cornwell, and I read Quantum and Spin. Those are the names of two of her books. I grabbed two of her books, and I'd never heard of this person before, but I had seen her name. And I guess in the foreword or somewhere in those books, it said that she spent years studying the space industry in order to write these novels. And I think that was a waste of time for her because all it ended up doing, in my opinion, if I recall correctly, there were way too many acronyms in her books. And she did the Chicago Press style thing or AP style method of explaining what the acronym is the first time you come across it. But then she just kept using the acronym after that, and I would forget what it was, and I didn't have there wasn't a glossary or table of contents or a key, I should say, to go back to figure out what those were. So after a while, whenever I saw all these acronyms, I just stopped caring about them. I didn't think the story was very good either. It was inconclusive still after the end of the second novel, and there is not a third novel. These are Captain Chase novels. And overall, I would be happy to just never read Patricia Cornwell again. So the next author I read was C.J. Box. I read Open Season and Savage Run, which are Joe Pickett novels number 1 and 2. And I thought his stuff was clear, easy to understand. The plots were okay, and um, they were set in Wyoming, a part of the West. I've only been in Wyoming very briefly on a road trip, and it was beautiful. But I think he's in part of Wyoming that I was not in, which he might have been closer to Montana, where these books take place. But I thought they were interesting. It made me think when I read those novels, hey, someday I might do road trips based off of some of the stuff I've read to go out to the West or different areas of the country I've hardly ever been, and think of those novels as I'm out there. It might induce some ideas for future plans for vacations, road trips. Next, after C.J. Box, is Stuart Woods, and I read New York Dead and Dirt, Stone Barrington novels, number 1 and 2. I really liked New York Dead. I felt like he was kind of abusing Stone Barrington in a way that makes you have a little empathy for the main character. And I thought the story and the plotline were actually pretty tight, pretty good. Dirt was, however, just felt like garbage to me. It was, I rated it a 2 out of 5, whereas New York Dead, I rated a 3 out of 5. There was way too much gratuitous sex in Dirt. I thought I was reading a porno and I wasn't reading a detective or a lawyer novel. There was very little lawyering in Dirt. It was mostly Stone having dalliances with characters. It felt like it was Stuart Wood's wish fulfillment, and it was very dirty, like Dirt. And made me not sure. I mean, New York Dead made me think I was going to read a lot of Stuart Woods, and then Dirt made me think again about that. Maybe I won't touch his books again. I don't know. If they're anything like Dirt, if they're like New York Dead, I will probably read more of his stuff willingly. But if they're like Dirt, then I'm not going to read it. After him was John Sanford. I read Dark of the Moon and Heat Lightning. These are Virgil Flowers novels. And I am trying to think if I remember anything at all about these novels. I don't think so. I think John Sanford was somebody who had a lot of short dialogue exchanges, and I feel like Virgil Flowers was. He might not have been. I think I'm maybe remembering that Virgil Flowers was supposed to be a new police chief in a new town, but I could be misremembering. Anyway, I don't remember anything about John Sanford other than I didn't care for his novels. So that was Dark of the Moon and Heat Lightning, Virgil Flowers. Then I read two James Patterson novels about his Michael Bennett character, Burn and Step on a Crack. And I also didn't care for that. I find James Patterson's writing to be unreadable. It's just 1 to 3 page chapters for the whole book. I mean, that works, I think, if it's actually really good in a thriller, but for the most part, I couldn't stand it. And I read through those quickly, and I don't think I'll ever be tempted to read a James Patterson novel the rest of my life. Next, I had read a Lee Childs book, the first Jack Reacher book that I read, Bad Luck and Trouble, and I liked it. That was a good first. That's the Jack Reacher number 11 novel, and um, I like the Jack Reacher character. I thought that was really good male wish fulfillment, and um, yeah, it was enjoyable. Then I read some Paulo Coelho books. I read Maktub or Mektub. I don't know how to say it. The Archer, The Spy. So that's 3 Paulo Coelho books. I just picked them up because I had read The Alchemist years ago, and I thought it was okay. And these were very short books. Maktub was actually pretty good. I thought it had a lot of wisdom sayings in it, and I would recommend it. The Archer was, I don't know. I didn't care for it really. I understood what he was trying to do, but I just found it too short, too just it lacked. There was some lackage in it, and the Spy was not bad, not great, but not bad. Then I read Dean Koontz. I had never read Dean Koontz before. Most of these authors I have never read before, like Lee Child, James Patterson, John Sanford, Stuart Woods, C.J. Box, Patricia Cornwell. Most of these people, I was picking up people I've never read their stuff before. So Dean Koontz, I just picked up one of his novels, and it was Odd Hours, an Odd Thomas #4 novel, and didn't care for it. I didn't get anything out of his writing or his story. Moving on, John Grisham, The Pelican Brief, and The Litigators. Now, I had read The Firm by John Grisham 10, 11, 12, actually maybe 15 years ago. And I liked The Firm, but I had never read any John Grisham since then, except for maybe one that my parents lent me that is forgettable, and I don't remember what it was. The Pelican Brief, I had seen the movie. I had never read the book. It was okay. The Litigators was all right as well. I could tell John Grisham is just, he's a step above, he is a quality above most of these other authors I had read up to that point. And so they're readable, they're more memorable than some of the other stuff. Then I read another Jack Reacher novel, Worth Dying For, and that one I think one of the Jack Reacher novels I didn't care for. I'm not sure if it was worth dying for or not. That one might have been no. I 4-starred that one, so that one was one that I obviously liked and don't remember anything about. But Jack Reacher novels, that's number 15, Worth Dying For. The Jack Reacher number 15, not the 15th novel that book I've gone over. But that's I don't know. I still recommend it. Next, I read Robert B. Parker. I read 2 of his books, his Jesse Stone novels, Night Passage and Trouble in Paradise. That's the guy. Okay, that's the guy who was the police chief for a town. And I thought Night Passage was okay. Trouble in Paradise I thought was not very good, but I thought like Robert B. Parker was a lesser James Woods or Stuart Woods. Sorry, James Woods, Stuart Woods. Just not very. Not. I don't know. I didn't care for it in the end. I think I was starting to get tired of police drama type books and detective type books. Next, I had read a book called From Vienna to Versailles, and this was a history book. And basically, the premise was the guy was talking about, he was trying to explain to the lay person things about the 19th century or the 1800s that most historians get wrong. And I thought it was pretty decent. It would be worth reading probably if you are a history major or if you're a history teacher. I would recommend From Vienna to Versailles by L.C.B. Seaman. But if you're just trying to crank through 50 books in a month, then maybe it's not really a good book to read because it'll take me a while, I think, to recall any of the main points. Then I read a Haruki Murakami. I've read Haruki Murakami quite a bit, but I read his what my library had, which was first-person singular stories. I thought some of them were actually pretty good. Some stories I didn't care for. Some were actually really good. I would recommend that. Then I read Philip Margolin's Betrayal, a Robin Lockwood book, and I didn't care for it very much. Okay, moving on. I read another Paulo Coelho, The Witch of Portobello. It was okay. I read a Thomas Kinkade novel, Cape Light. It was not written by Thomas Kinkade. There was another author who had written it, authoress, I believe, but based off of Thomas Kinkade's paintings. This was my first like pure woman novel where the woman has to choose between, does she like this guy more than that guy? She's not really into this guy, but she's also not really into the other guy, and yet both are good guys. But she's conflicted because staying with this one guy means that she's going to have to stay in this town that she grew up in, but she wants to have her career back in the city, where she's with this other guy, and both muscular, of course, and it's a tremendous battle to figure out which of these guys she's going to be, she should be with some petty drama towards the end, and some hissy fits and stuff. But that's the first kind of novel like that I've ever read, and I had just grabbed it because I saw it, I grabbed it, and I didn't think anything of it. Next, I read Brad Thor, Act of War, a Scott Harvath novel. I liked it. I liked Brad Thor's writing. I liked his depth of knowledge of military fiction. And so, if you like military fiction, I think I could recommend Brad Thor. Then I read another Philip Margolin, Murder at Black Oaks. This was another Robin Lockwood novel, and again, I did not care for it. I didn't care for his style of writing. I didn't care for the characters. I didn't care for the plot. Then I read Michael Connelly, The Overlook. Don't think I have anything to say about that. I think that was just a quick and bland read. I read a Vince Flynn novel, Code Red, and that was not written by Vince Flynn. Vince Flynn had died 10 years prior to this novel being released. Kyle Mills was the person who actually wrote it, but under Vince Flynn's character of Mitch Rapp. And I think this is the last Mitch Rapp novel, number 22. I thought it was okay. It was okay. If you like military fiction, I think you would find Vince Flynn's stuff, or the authors who write under his name. I think you would find it to be okay. Then I read The Broker by John Grisham, and I thought that was kind of fun to read because it was about a character in Italy learning the language, and because I've been expressing interest in learning Italian and potentially trying to live there when I'm retired, then because I could get a passport, I could live there because my mother was born in Italy. But I thought that book was kind of fun to read. Wasn't expecting that. Moving on, I read Orphan X by Greg Hurwitz, and I didn't. It's the first Orphan X novel. I didn't care for it. Then I read The Enemy by another Jack Reacher novel, Jack Reacher number 8. That might have been the one I didn't like. I think that's the one that didn't feel like a Jack Reacher novel at all. Maybe he didn't really get good at writing the Jack Reachers till later, because that was number 8, and number 12 was Nothing to Lose. That was another Jack Reacher that I did like. That felt like Jack Reacher again. So, another Brad Thor novel, Code of Conduct. That was okay. I think I really liked the first Brad Thor novel I read, Code Red, but this Code of Conduct, I guess I didn't like. Then I read a book from Thomas Kochman called Black and White Styles and Conflict. This is actually something that was filled in a lot of dots for me, that gave me a lot of information about things that were mysteries to me in the past, between black people and white people, and I would recommend it. So, moving on, my battery is getting kind of low on my laptop, so I have to hurry. I have to hurry through these novels. Robert Ludlum, The Matlock Paper, my first Robert Ludlum novel. I didn't care for it. I think we're getting close. I'm looking up here. I read some C.S. Lewis. I read The Great Divorce, The Problem of Pain, Miracles. Those are all C.S. Lewis books, and I actually kind of realized that I don't care. I don't really care how C.S. Lewis writes. Most of his writing, I don't. I just didn't. didn't like the way C.S. Lewis wrote, I guess. I wouldn't recommend them just because, I mean, The Great Divorce was kind of interesting, but the other ones, I don't know, they were just not memorable, and I found that I didn't really care for C.S. Lewis's style of writing. I thought it was actually poorer than I realized. And then John Ward, Testimony, Inside the Evangelical Movement That Failed a Generation. That was just a quick grab because I knew I could burn through it in like an hour, and I I was intrigued by the premise, but it didn't turn out to be. It was more biographical than it really was. I mean, I guess it was testimonial than it was what I was really expecting him to talk about. It didn't go in depth to stuff. It was way too political. I read a couple John Irving novels, A Prayer for Owen Meany and The Cider House Rules. I think they were both good. I read Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avonlea, and Anne of the Islands because my wife had those novels hanging around and I knew I could read through them in an afternoon. And didn't, yeah, not my thing. Then I read See You Later, Alligator by William F. Buckley Jr. It was okay. It was actually not bad. Then I read Operation Barracuda. This is a Tom Clancy Splinter Cell novel, but written by David Michaels. It was just okay. Then I read John Grisham's Camino Ghosts. I thought that wasn't very good. And then I read True Faced and Necessary Endings. Necessary Endings was a nice final book to end with. And I recommend that book. That was a good book that's helping me with some personal issues about ending things and not the thing, not life. That's not what it's about. That's not a necessary ending. Um, but otherwise, I guess I really want to be done discussing the novels. That's 50 novels. Do I recommend this? No, I do not recommend it. Mostly because I don't recommend putting the pressure on yourself to complete it. Maybe give yourself like a don't give yourself a number. That was a mistake. By giving myself the number 50, read 50 books, that made it feel like I was under the gun. I felt like I had to do it, and then it started to feel burdensome because I felt like I couldn't do other things that were interests in place of it. So I'm not going to do a book challenge like that again. I toyed with the idea of doing a book challenge with graphic novels because I've not read graphic novels and it's just a genre I'd like to kind of poke my nose into. Other than that, this next month I'm just going to read very lightly and go through an accounting textbook, starting to look at some potential career side paths. But other than that, I'm not going to do the 50 books ever again. I'm not interested in being somebody who reads like 500 books a year. I don't, even if I was retired and wealthy, I don't think I would want to do that. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think reading all those novels was worth it just because, yes, I know I can now just grab any novel off the shelf at a library and I could probably be amused for a bit. But honestly, I would rather watch TV shows or anime or play video games over most 90% of those novels. Most of them were not. I would say were not. One couldn't replace other entertaining activities in place of those. But by reading all the novels, I did stop. I stopped using YouTube. I stopped like going on and watching YouTube. I stopped going on social media. So it really helped me eliminate and prune, which is a term from Necessary Endings that he describes pruning things that don't bring any value to you. So I pruned a few things in the process of reading, but now I'm pruning the heavy reading so that I can focus on some other things in life. So yeah, I don't recommend it. I don't want to keep repeating myself saying if I recommend it or not because now I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over. Okay, I'm at 25 minutes here. That's plenty of time. I don't really want to discuss books anymore. I'm kind of booked out at the moment. And I'll see you on the next video whenever that is.